By the end of this decade, the United States is on track to use more electricity running data centers than it uses to make steel, cement, aluminum, and every other heavy industrial good combined. For years, the race in artificial intelligence was about chips. Who has the most, the fastest, the smallest? But the real ceiling is turning out to be something much older and much harder to build: electricity. The models are hungry, the build-out is enormous, and the power grid was not designed for this. This is the story of AI's electricity problem: what the data actually shows, who's exaggerating, and who ends up paying for it. Start with where we are. In 2024, data centers in the United States used about 180 terawatt-hours of electricity. That's roughly 4.4% of all the power the country consumed, about the same as the entire nation of Pakistan. Globally, data centers drew around 415 terawatt-hours, or 1.5% of the world's electricity. Not enormous yet. But here's the thing about averages: they hide where the load actually lands. And data centers don't spread out. They pile up. Now the trajectory. The U.S. Department of Energy's National Lab projects that data centers could jump from 4.4% of American electricity to somewhere between 7 and 12% by 2028, potentially tripling in 5 years. Globally, the International Energy Agency expects data center power use to roughly double by 2030, from about 415 to 945 terawatt-hours, adding the equivalent of Japan's entire electricity consumption. The estimates vary wildly, from 200 to over 1,000 terawatt-hours, because the industry is famously opaque. But every credible forecast points the same direction: steeply up. Why does artificial intelligence need so much power? 2 reasons: density and duty cycle. AI runs on tightly packed clusters of chips that draw far more power per rack than normal servers, and unlike everyday computing, they run flat out, near peak, around the clock. A single training run for a frontier model can occupy thousands of chips at full draw for weeks. The IEA estimates a typical large data center uses as much electricity as 100,000 homes. The biggest ones now under construction will use 20 times that, the equivalent of about 2 million households in one building. And AI specifically is the accelerant. While overall data center electricity grew about 17% in a single year, the power used by AI-focused data centers surged 50%. In the United States, data centers are now projected to account for nearly half of all the growth in the country's electricity demand between now and 2030. Not half of electricity, half of the growth. For the first time in decades, a single new industry is bending the national power curve upward. The last time America's electricity demand grew like this, it was building air conditioning into every home. Remember how averages hide the load? Here's where it actually lands. In Virginia, the data center capital of the world, these facilities already consume around a quarter of the entire state's electricity. In Dublin, Ireland, data centers eat nearly 80% of the city's power, and the regulator has called the path unsustainable. In the regional market that serves Virginia and 12 other states, the price utilities pay to guarantee future power has spiked almost tenfold. The grid isn't straining everywhere. It's straining exactly where the servers cluster. So who pays for that strain? Increasingly, you do. Communities near big data center clusters in Virginia, Texas, and Georgia are already seeing residential electricity rates climb 8 to 15%. Across the U.S., retail power prices are up more than 40% since 2019, with data centers named as a significant driver. In that 13-state market, regulators found that removing data centers from the forecast would cut the cost of guaranteeing power by over $9 billion, about 64%. The servers bid for the same electricity you do, and they bid higher. But before we declare the grid doomed, look at the whole picture. Data centers account for only about 1/10 of global electricity demand growth between now and 2030. Less than air conditioning, less than electric vehicles, less than ordinary industrial motors. The total share stays around 3% worldwide. So the headline isn't that AI is swallowing all the world's power. It's that AI's power lands in a few specific places, all at once, faster than utilities can build. The problem isn't the size of the wave, it's where it breaks. And there's a second twist: efficiency. The energy used per AI task has been falling by roughly 10 times a year. A simple text query now uses less electricity than running your television for the same few seconds. If every internet search on Earth were a basic AI query, it would add less than 1% to today's data center load. So why worry? Because we don't stop at simple queries. Video generation, long reasoning, and AI agents can each use hundreds to thousands of times more energy than a single text reply. Every efficiency gain gets spent on doing far more. The machine gets leaner, and we feed it more. Follow the money, and the scale gets clearer. The biggest technology companies spent over $400 billion building this out in 2025 and plan to spend 75% more in 2026. The capital expenditure of just 5 tech firms is now larger than the entire world's investment in oil and gas production. American utilities have penciled in more than $1.4 trillion of grid spending through 2030, and the power has to come from somewhere. Natural gas still supplies most of it, while tech companies sign deals to restart retired nuclear plants, including 3 Mile Island, and bet on small reactors arriving around 2030. Step back, and the real story comes into focus. For 2 years, the question was how smart AI could get. Quietly, that question has been replaced by a physical one. Can we power it? Chips can be made in months. A power plant or a transmission line takes years. So the industry is doing something telling, building around the grid instead of through it. Private gas turbines, dedicated nuclear, on-site generation. That solves the speed problem and creates a new one. When a data center makes its own power, it stops paying to maintain the shared grid, and those costs shift onto everyone else's bill. AI's intelligence may be virtual. Its electricity is brutally physical. So here's what to actually hold on to. 1. AI's real constraint is no longer chips, it's electricity, and the bottleneck is concentration, not total size. 2. The scary numbers and the reassuring numbers are both true. Around 3% of world power, but a quarter of Virginia's. Always ask where. 3. Efficiency won't save the grid, because every gain gets spent on heavier AI. And 4. The cost is quietly landing on ordinary electricity bills. The smartest machines ever built run on the oldest infrastructure we have. Whether AI keeps scaling may come down to copper, gas, and concrete. If this rewired how you see AI, subscribe, that's what this channel does every week. And tell me below, should data centers pay more to keep your lights affordable?